Hello. Let me tell you something. The best part of making a podcast is the fact that I'm in my bed right now looking like an absolute gremlin. All I've done is get up to make coffee, got right back in bed to record this episode for you. I don't know if that shatters your illusion that I'm in some fancy studio doing this, but hot tip, you can just do it from your bedroom. Today's episode is called Subatomic, because of the subtle ways that criticism in a relationship can chip away at your confidence until you start to question your worth. Sometimes it's the little things over time. It's not always what we think of. A lot of what breaks relationships isn't yelling or cheating or drama, although it can be that, obviously. Sometimes it's just the way we communicate when we're scared to be close, whether that's consciously or subconsciously, especially if we learned from growing up or other relationships that vulnerability isn't safe. Let's talk a little bit about supportive versus subtle criticism. Criticism isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like yelling or obvious disrespect. Sometimes it hides in the tiniest things, just the tone when you say something, or a sigh when somebody says something to you. You can say something that sounds helpful on the surface, but really lands like a dig. Giving feedback from a loving place is a collaborative thing, and it comes from a place of care and respect and desire for mutual growth, while subtle criticism comes from discomfort or control or anxiety. It lands as judgment rather than support, and you can feel the difference when you're on the receiving end of this. You know what I'm talking about. An example would be, feedback would be, hey, would you be open to trying doing this way? It might help both of us. A subtle criticism would be more like, why do you always do it like that? Ugh. The difference isn't just in the words, it's the energy behind them. And this is a thing, you can't secretly be judging the person and then try to act in a way that's not judgmental. It's an internal change that needs to happen. You need to genuinely be coming from a place of love. That's why so much of this relationship stuff is based on internal work and your own healing. So whether you're the person that has trouble nitpicking and criticizing, or you're on the receiving end of it, whoever is doing it needs to figure out within themselves how they can come at you from a place of love and collaboration versus criticizing. Here's a couple examples of needs versus nitpicking so you can see the difference. Sharing your needs sounds like, I feel overwhelmed when the house is messy. Can we make a plan together to fix this issue? Nitpicking sounds like, you left your socks here again every single time, which I know can be frustrating, but you do have to learn how to emotionally self-regulate so that you can come to these conversations from a genuine place of, I know this is frustrating for me, but I understand why they may be doing it. I understand that they don't want to hurt me. Hopefully, if they do, that's another issue. And so I'm going to come to this from a place of collaboration and how can we fix this together and come up with something that is good for both of us. Sharing your needs is rooted in vulnerability and a desire to connect with the other person, while nitpicking is a deflection. It's easier to focus on the socks than say, I feel a little disconnected and unsupported and I'm craving more shared effort. And sometimes you're stressed and you don't always have the capacity to do this in the moment. And I think that's why we react sometimes the way we do. But that's why it's important to learn self-regulation and to take a little bit of responsibility for yourself and go, okay, I don't have to say this right now. I can come to a place where I'm more calm and think about it for a second and then bring this issue to them. I think nitpicking is kind of the default, socially acceptable almost way to express our unspoken emotional needs. Because honestly, good on you for listening to this podcast or reading books about relationships or whatever else you've done to improve your relationships. But most people, I would think most people don't. They kind of stumble their way through relationships. And sometimes you can learn that way. And sometimes you can have some major blind spots that really stick with you. Now, so far we've talked about some things like cleaning and things that I think a lot of people deal with on a daily basis in relationships, but there are some more hurtful and personal ways to be subtly critical of someone that can add up over time. And I think people who are avoidantly attached in particular can do this as a way of distancing. And most of the time, I would say it is subconscious on their end. They're not saying, I don't want to be close to this person, so I'm going to criticize them over and over to keep them at arm's length. Most of the time, they don't even know that they're doing it, but it is hurtful and something to be aware of on both ends. One would be like criticizing what you're wearing. You're wearing that, or I don't really like those shoes, or they just don't like your style, whatever. Little things like that can really add up. They seem like small things. Like, why would you really care? Oh, your partner's allowed to have an opinion on your clothes or whatever. But that kind of stuff can actually really add up as far as just feeling loved and accepted by the other person. Another example would be if you're doing something, let's use working out as an example, and they might say you need to work out more, or you need to work out this way. You need to do more weight training. You're not doing enough weight training. Okay, that might sound like helpful fitness advice, and it may be. There are obviously examples of this where in a perfect world, this is not judgment, but in the context of this conversation, a lot of the time, what might sound like just helpful fitness advice really comes across as judgment on the other person's body or their worthiness. Another one would be if, say, you see a book someone's reading and you go, oh, you read those kind of books? It's not necessarily overtly mean, but it can be very dismissive. And it can signal that your interests are silly or shallow or beneath them. It can even be things like, you look tired today. Sometimes that can be a genuine concern, but when it's said repeatedly, it implies that your natural appearance isn't good enough, or there's something wrong with the way you look. You see what I'm saying? These may all seem like small things, but like I said, when someone's coming from a place of avoidant attachment, and this is their natural form of communication, and they do this often in lots of subtle little ways, it adds up. Because the purpose of it, whether subconsciously or consciously, is to distance you. It is to create distance. That is what it does. Someone who's avoidantly attached will minimize you both internally, and sometimes that will come out externally in these little criticisms, because it's a way of them telling themselves in their brain, it's okay if I lose this person because they're not perfect anyway. It's an egoic thing. Once again, not always intentional, but to make separation feel safe and okay, and to keep vulnerability at bay. So if this relationship doesn't work out, it's okay. They had a lot of flaws anyway. Because if you're really vulnerable and really close, and you allow yourself to really appreciate the person fully, that means it may really hurt if things don't work out. And when you're on the receiving end of this, constantly being corrected or lightly criticized for how you look, how you think, what you wear, how you show up, it can make you feel like you're always getting it wrong, even if you're trying, even if you're just existing and being yourself. So once again, these aren't blow-ups, they aren't massive fights, but they add up. And eventually, and this is where Subatomic comes in, the song is about you feel so small that you start to feel too small to be yourself, too small to just exist normally without feeling like the other person is going to make some comment that hurts your feelings that day. I think a really great example of this is the argument people have over dishwashers. This is a common argument. Example, you load the dishwasher the way you load it, and then your partner fixes it for you every time. On the surface, it's logistics, but underneath, it could be control. It could be anxiety around imperfection. It can be emotional distance disguised as order. It can signal to the person on the receiving end, I don't trust you to handle things the right way, or the way I do things is better than the way you do things. All these moments pile up, and then the relationship starts to feel less like a partnership and more like a performance review. Let's get into a little bit more about avoidant attachment and passive negativity. So once again, avoidant attachment often shows up not as yelling or direct abandonment always, but as low-grade disapproval, a kind of quiet distance that can make the other person feel small. Like I said, nitpicking is a way to create this space when closeness feels overwhelming. Passive negativity like cold responses, eye rolls, emotional shutdown, they are defense mechanisms. They are defense mechanisms on the part of the avoidantly attached person, but they make the partner on the receiving end feel judged or like they're failing at the relationship. Over time, this erodes their self-confidence. It's very hard to feel safe being yourself in a relationship when your partner is constantly signaling to you that you're not doing it right. I have obviously been on the receiving end of this because that's why I wrote this song. It signals to you that the other person is not looking at you through a lens of love, but a lens of constantly judging you. And you feel like every day when you get up, that person is looking you up and down and judging your appearance, what you're doing, what you're reading, anything. The kind of stuff where you feel like you can't just sit and breathe and relax and be comfortable in the other person's presence because they are not comfortable in your presence. They are not at the place internally where they can just be with someone else and appreciate who they are and not take the little things for granted while also not caring about little differences that really, at the end of the day, are not a big deal and not that important. Okay, we've talked about some of the things that you or the avoidantly attached person can do wrong. Let's discuss what supportive communication looks like. Because there will be disagreements in relationships. There will be little things you might want to discuss at some point. And healthy relationships aren't about being perfect and never messing up and always accepting everything exactly as it is with no communication. They're about being safe places to grow and to give and receive feedback and to stay emotionally close without shame. And we will always get triggered at some point. We will say things we don't mean. But the difference between connection and disconnection often comes down to how we communicate and how we repair, especially during these moments of stress or disappointment. One tip is to replace phrases like "you always do blank" with "I feel," because criticism says you're the problem and vulnerability says here's what I need. So instead of "you never make time for me," you can say, "I've been feeling a little disconnected. Can we carve out some time just for us this week?" This softens it. It doesn't put them on the defense, and it focuses on you and your needs and not their flaws. Some other examples would be, "You're always on your phone." Instead, you could say, "I miss connecting with you when we're together." See how that's soft and vulnerable and emphasizes that you want connection? It's not you nitpicking or criticizing the person. It's saying, "I miss us just sitting here together and connecting." Another one, "You never listen to me." A better way to communicate this would be, "Sometimes I feel unheard and it makes me shut down, or it makes me feel disconnected from you." When you're coming from this collaborative place, it emphasizes that you're a team, you're in this together, you want to feel closer to this person. You're not bringing something up from a place of criticism and judgment. You're bringing it up from, "Man, I'm really missing this thing. How can we come together and have more connection? Or how can we come together and reduce my stress because I feel like there's extra burden on me," or whatever it is. Another tip is to ask in situations instead of assuming, because sometimes criticism is just anxiety in disguise. It's a need to control a situation to minimize your own anxiety. So instead of, "Oh my God, you didn't do that right," you can say, "Hey, do you need help with that?" And not from a place of, "You're doing that wrong, do you need help?" But from a place of, "Can we do this together?" That's more collaborative versus correcting the person. So if you're a person who needs to manage everything all the time and you might feel the urge to just jump in and take over, but asking first lets your partner know you're on their side, not supervising them, and there may be a better way if you both come together and do it together. They might know a better way than you, and you might know a little thing that can help them out. I heard this at some point, which I really love, and it's that most people don't want to be right. They want to feel seen. So they want to feel understood. It's not about, "I have to be right in this argument." It's, "I want to feel like you understand what I'm saying and you get where I'm coming from." That's why validating someone before you redirect them or try to come up with a different way to function in a relationship or in a situation is great. An example would be, "I know how hard you've been working lately, and I appreciate how much you show up, and I know how busy you are. I love that you try to help even when we're stressed out." Then you would say, "Would you be open to hearing something that I've been thinking about too?" This creates a soft way to open things up. You're not blindsiding them. You're not criticizing them. You're recognizing them for their efforts and their situation and what they're going through internally and externally. You're building a bridge for them before you're asking them to cross it, if that makes sense. If you are an avoidant, a tip for an avoidantly attached person might be to pause before you pull away. If your avoidant tendencies show up as critique or withdrawal or control, you need to understand that a lot of the time that's actually coming from fear. And so you will ask yourself, Am I trying to protect myself right now in this moment or connect with the other person? If you notice that impulse to shut down or sigh or nitpick or retreat and run away, pause for a second, tell yourself, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, or tell them, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now, but I want to stay in this conversation with you. That externalizes what you're feeling, helps them be aware, helps you be aware, and it could help them say, okay, we can pause for a second, or maybe express what would help you, or they can ask you what would help you feel safer right now. This kind of micro honesty builds safety for both of you, and it increases connection versus pushing the other person away. Supportive communication is not always about saying the perfect thing. It's about creating a space where you bring your worlds closer together instead of pushing the other person away. It's that simple, or at least it sounds that simple. It can be very difficult in practice sometimes when we're not used to doing that. But once you start to master this, and you may stumble your way into it, it may not be easy, you will feel the difference truly, and you will start to feel your relationship become more peaceful. You'll start to feel more connected and closer to the other person and feel like you're on the same team. Now, if you feel like you're already dealing with this, you already had your self-confidence broken down, the safety broken down, and you are looking to rebuild that, here are some tips for that. Words can build the foundation of a relationship, and they can also slowly crack it. And a lot of the time, those cracks come from what we say in passing when we're tired, when we're anxious, or when we're scared to be close. Here's some gentle self-inquiry you can use to figure out where you're at and what might need to change. Have I been using criticism as a shield, a way to protect myself from being too vulnerable or from being the one who wants more? Have I unintentionally made my partner feel like they're always coming up short, like they have to earn my affection or my approval? Do I feel safe expressing my needs without judgment? And does my partner feel that same safety with me? If the answer to this is no, that doesn't necessarily mean you're failing. It just means you found a place in the relationship where healing needs to happen and can start. Going back a little bit to positive communication, and this is true, I've read with children as well. A lot of the time, we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to approach a situation properly. But the faster you repair that situation, the healthier the relationship is. So we're going to make mistakes, but if we can fix those mistakes as soon as we notice what we've done, that's really going to help start to heal these issues. 1, apologize for your tone, not just your words. I realize I sounded cold earlier when I said that. That wasn't my intention. I think I was overwhelmed, but I do care about what you're saying. 2, acknowledge the impact of what you said, even if you didn't intend to hurt the other person. Because most of us don't have bad intentions. I know I said that thing about your clothes jokingly, but I could tell it landed wrong. I'm sorry if it felt like I was judging you. So you're saying, I understand the impact of what I said might have had on you, and I'm sorry for that. A lot of people struggle with this because they're defensive and they don't want to admit that they may have been wrong about something. But sometimes it's not about whether you had bad intentions or intentions to hurt the other person when you said it, because a lot of people here will go, I didn't mean it that way, or I'm sorry you felt that way. Okay, well, it did come off that way, and it can hurt the other person still, even if you didn't have bad intentions. So that's when you need to acknowledge, oh, I see how this may have hurt you, even though I didn't intend it to, and I'm very sorry for that. Because you should be sorry that the other person in your relationship is hurting, even if that wasn't your intent. And when you're ready to open the space for closeness again during repair, you can tell them, I want to be a safe space for you. If I've said anything that made you feel judged or small, I would genuinely like to understand so I can do better. And that's where the conversation opens from a place of vulnerability and repair. Final thoughts. In a relationship where criticism has taken up space, safety has to be rebuilt, not just expected to come. It comes from accountability, from softness, and from choosing to be curious and collaborative instead of critical. And I want to reassure you, you can change the dynamic even if you've fallen into subtle criticism. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware and willing to repair. And that rhymes, baby. And that repair is one of the best and most intimate connective things that you can do. If you've been on either side of this, whether it's giving or receiving subtle criticism, know that it's not about being wrong or being broken. It's about noticing the pattern, naming it, and choosing something softer, something safer for both of you. And that is how intimacy gets rebuilt. You know, I love a good affirmation, so here's a couple for you. I can express my needs without hurting others. I release the need to protect myself with distance. I'm allowed to want closeness, and I'm safe enough to build it gently. Oh, I hope there was some good stuff in there for you today. Hope your relationships just become so cute and cozy and comfortable and intimate. But if you're in this right now, you're feeling like somebody made you feel small, and maybe the relationship ended, whether you're still in it now and you think there may be hope for repair, or the relationship ended because the other person didn't want to step up and do their side of the work, this song is for you.
Nuclear reaction, break me down to size. Opposites attract, and you're always the anti. Elemental changes, structure rearranges. Now I'm subatomic, 'cause you're just being honest. Break up, part the parts of me that aren't what you want them to be, and make me smaller. Subatomic. Is this what you intended? Is it what you had in mind? A version so diminished, the one you can't confine. Is this what I'm stuck with? Forever deconstructed. Now I'm subatomic, 'cause you're just being honest. Break up, part the parts of me that aren't what you want them to be, make me smaller.
Here's this week's question. I met a guy at the bar and I'm starting to catch feelings. On our dates, he's so sweet and there's so much chemistry, but he works construction and is always working late. He used to text back ASAP, but now he leaves me undelivered for days. I told him that makes me feel like he's ghosting me. He says he wants to text more, but that he's always busy with work. How do I deal with bad texting when the chemistry in real life is so good? Okay, here's my honest opinion. No one who is interested in you should be leaving you undelivered for days. Being busy is a real thing, but disappearing isn't. Chemistry in real life can be so intoxicating, but consistency is what makes something emotionally safe. And right now, the inconsistency is louder to me than the chemistry. I know it may not be that way to you, but as an outsider looking in, a couple things to think about. Bad texting usually isn't about texting, it's about responsiveness. So if someone's really busy, they can definitely find 10 seconds to send you a note saying, long day, thinking about you, we'll talk tomorrow. So silence for days isn't a communication style. That is being inconsiderate. And his explanation isn't matching his behavior. So he says he wants to text more, but he used to text back ASAP and now he doesn't. That is a signal that the capacity isn't gone. It's just that his priorities shifted. That doesn't make him bad, but it does give you information. You already did the healthy thing by telling him how it made you feel, and that's not needy, that's emotionally literate. If someone responds to that with more understanding and more effort, great. But if they respond to that with reassurance and no change, that's where your answer is. I've touched on this a little bit in past episodes, but unfortunately, chemistry does not cancel out bad patterns. Strong in real life chemistry often makes inconsistency feel even worse because your nervous system gets so activated and then dropped. And then that push-pull is how people get attached to situations that don't actually meet their needs. You just have to remember that chemistry is the spark, but consistency is the safety. And you're allowed to want both of those things. And right now, based on what you've told me, he is not giving you the consistency you need. And you've expressed that, and he's still not doing it. And once again, you know he has the capacity to do it because he has done it before. But apparently he does not have the capacity to sustain it. And that's just as important. I'm wishing you the best. And let me just tell you, girl, there's somebody out there who's going to text you and they're going to be so excited to text you and they're not going to drop off in their texting, okay? So don't be settling because you feel like the chemistry is good in person. You need the whole package for a good relationship, and you are going to get it from somebody if it's not this guy. If you've got a love question, a pattern you can't seem to break, or something you need clarity on, this is your sign to submit a question to the Attachment Theory Love Line. You can find the link in the show notes and my bio anytime. If this episode is resonating with you, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with someone who might need it. Each episode is inspired by a song from my upcoming record, Attachment Theory. You can find the music wherever you listen, and follow me on socials at Aubrie Sellers.